time.
Far Cry 5 ruined my day. The first time I beat Far Cry 5, I text ranted at several friends while verbally ranting at my poor sister. I was so annoyed with the conclusion of the story that I didn't even go back and finish the fishing side quests, and I love fishing side quests. Overall, I think the story is what I hated about Far Cry 5. But that's not to say I hated everything about the story, just most of it. I enjoyed playing the game, and I probably spent way too much time flying airplanes, but I needed a fresh perspective, so I played Far Cry 5 again. Turns out I still hated the story, but I had a better understanding of what I disliked and what I liked, and I can put a finger on what I personally think was wrong with the story. The setting is as important to the story as the story is to the story. Far Cry takes place in Hope County, Montana, which is potentially made up, but we can't confirm that. When I think about Far Cry 5, the first thing I experience is a quick burst of rage, followed by remembering how beautiful the setting is. It's like if you took one of those Cabela's Moose Hunt 2000 arcade games and combined it with Far Cry. Peaceful. Tranquil. Far Cry. And then you combine that beautiful landscape with an American doomsday cult, and I thought this was going to be a banger of a game. Far Cry 5 is filled with beautiful views and peaceful moments, all of which are ruined by the game's intrusive story, which I'll swing back to. It's a beautifully crafted map with lakes, rivers, and hills and forests, which you can experience from either the ground or the air. Admittedly, I probably spent too much time trying to experience it from the air. Which brings me to playing Far Cry. Far Cry is Far Cry. If you liked the previous 3 to 4 installments, this one isn't too different. But that doesn't mean it isn't fun. One of my greatest flaws as a human being is my willingness to buy a Far Cry knowing that it'll be just like the last Far Cry I played. Except for the last Far Cry I played, it was over in a couple of minutes. And I didn't play that Far Cry with a buddy. Far Cry 5 is significantly more fun if you play with a friend that hates flying planes and you make them fly the plane for the most important plane boss fight. It makes things more interesting and gives me motion sickness. Interaction with random NPCs is limited to trading and getting quests, but sometimes you can just make your own fun.
Now you stop that right now!
You did the
Quit
right
fucking
thing.
around. That's enough! You're trying my patience! That's it! You're...
The fun of Far Cry comes from the random idiocy that two people can experience together in a wacky, wild, open-world game. Not necessarily from completing the same base capture missions over and over until the game forces you to have less fun by playing the story.
Heard, as it were the noise of thunder when the four beasts say, "Come and see."
They tried to tie progression in the open world to progressing in the story, but they did it in the worst possible way. Every time you free a civilian or liberate a base or blow up a truck, you fill a little bar. Each region has its own bar that fills separately from every other region. Once you hit a certain point on that bar, playtime's over and you're forced to participate in the story whether you want to or not. In Jacob Seed's region, you get mind controlled, and no matter where you are, he can get you. I don't like the system of forcing me to do little things, whether I'm having fun with them or not, and then making anything I do result in me playing the story. I know it isn't a problem if you just finish the area, but it's still frustrating. Especially the invincible kill team that gets you no matter what. Part of what makes getting kidnapped all the time so lame is that most of the antagonists suck. They're this little cult family that built up a military worth of violent followers. Each of them has a fun little backstory to make them more relatable, like our guy Joseph strangled his baby to death like a relatable father. Jacob ate his squad mate. Faith is just one of many kidnapped and brainwashed women forced into the position of Faith Seed. And my favorite guy, John, has unmanaged anger issues. Let's ignore John for a little and focus on Jacob. His segment of the game involves him kidnapping you and imparting you with intense sleeper agent abilities, allowing you to repeatedly practice the exact run of the bunker where you will eventually kill the man opposing him. It's important to note, I don't care about anyone in this region. Anyway, Jacob's favorite conversation topic is something about culling the herd? He talks about it a lot and acts like the resident expert of herd culling. After your first incident being captured by him, you've been conditioned to respond to the song Only You by the Platters, so he can summon you from anywhere at any time by magically transmitting the song through space directly into your brain. I tested it. He can get you anywhere, and I don't understand what his power is. I get brainwashing and sleeper agents and all that bullcrap, but how does he pause time inside the bunker and monologue to you? Like, this real message while you're in front of several armed people, and he just disappears. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I give Jacob Seed a 0 out of 1. He sucks and he's annoying. Next up is Faith Seed. Her name is Faith Seed because you have to have a lot of faith to believe they put any thought into the super drugs that they grow and use to gain superpowers. Faith Seed is not a real Seed sibling. She's just a manipulated, drug-addicted girl that did the job well. You can find evidence of previous deceased faiths throughout the game in like caves and crap. This portion of the game is possibly dumber than the Super Soldier Sleeper Agent portion of the game. I tried really hard to read all the lore about the drugs they grow, but I couldn't figure out why it gave superpowers and caused hallucinations and made people invincible and allowed for mind control. I could be dumb, but that doesn't sound like normal drugs to me. Anyway, this section of the game has one fun part where you blow up a giant Joseph statue, but other than that, it's just really annoying with dumb characters and mind control again. They wrote John Seed's part, and they were like, hey, this is pretty good. It's got kidnapping, and fighting, and planes, and interesting characters. Well, what do we do for part 2? Mind control? Part 3? Mind control? Final boss? Mind control? Sounds good to me. They couldn't progress any plot beyond John Seed's section of the game without some bogus nonsense, which leads me to John Seed, my favorite of the Seeds. Technically, the only antagonist that you can avoid getting captured by, but that's very technically because the squad is almost invincible. He doesn't use mind control, he's just abusive and sadistic and flies planes. He seems like he's the most developed of the game's antagonists because you get to witness his issues. He doesn't tell you about how he used to be angry and carve people's chests up. He does it in front of you. You visit his dungeon, and you ransack his home, and you carry his corpse around, and then you miss all the good times you shared together. John's section of the game is cheesy and fun, but also contains glimpses of awareness. It helps that John's supposed to be the charismatic part of the cult. This stretch of the game also contains the most memorable side characters that have real lives and act like real people. Nick and Kim Rye are a young couple that are gonna have a daughter soon. Jerome Jeffries is a war vet and a pastor who lost his congregation to the cult. Mary Mae Fairgrave is a bar owner whose family was ripped apart by the cult. The funny thing about all these characters is that they all appeared in promotional material for the game, while nobody from any other region does. I have no evidence to suggest anything, but I'm fairly certain this was the portion of the game that got the most focus during development. This section plays like the game I was advertised and not the one I got. It's also got the planes and the dog like I was told the game would have. No offense to Peaches or Cheeseburger, I just don't think every area needed an animal companion. Maybe it was all they had ready at the time of teasing the game, but it just comes across as strange that we're only shown things from this one section of the game, and it's also the only section that really focuses on sin and religious concepts, while the other sections are based in mind control with little religious elements tacked on. Remember, I'm just an idiot and I don't know anything, but in my gut, I feel this is the game they started with and they just needed to make it bigger, so they recycled the same sleeper agent plot and slapped on a garbage ending. The final section of the game is a quick boss fight and an escape scene if you pick the option that leads to the escape. If you don't pick the option that leads to the escape, just kill your friends. The boss fight is mega dumb and it involves magic powers, mind control, and all the followers. Your reward for beating the boss? Huh? Nuclear destruction, of course. Joseph Seed and his drippy nose were right all along, and the end of the world was coming. Good job, you didn't accomplish anything. To make matters worse, all the officers you wasted all your time saving die in a car crash, and you get captured by Joe Seed. That's the end. You won, so do you feel like a winner? No? Which brings me back to John. The boss fight against John compared to the boss fight against Joseph. Joseph's fight seemed forced. All your friends magically gathered together to defeat the big, mean cult leader. The only explanation for this being that Joseph captured all of them and drugged them so that they could fight against you with him. It's just too dumb for me to even believe. But the boss fight with John is established better. He takes over a town, captures a handful of the people inside the church, and tricks you into showing up. Then you see a fun little cutscene where John expresses religious views, however twisted they are, and then he's forced to run. There's a cool chase with planes and machine guns and stuff, and then you have a dang dogfight in airplanes, and you finish John off on the ground. That's a cool climax. All your friends don't get nuked, and characters have meaningful interactions with the encounter. They aren't just there for the sake of being there. The main story sucks, but how are the side quests? Well, they're weird. The game's main story seemingly wants to be taken seriously because they don't really joke around. They deal with a lot of serious topics like murdering babies and torturing people. The side quests, however, cover topics such as testy festy.
Can't wait to pop one of those juicy balls into my mouth. That would make a TV chef's asshole pucker. Just say interrupting a bull when he's playing hide the salami is one of the most dangerous things you can do.
And some guy wanting to run for political office by blowing up cultists. Tonal consistency is important for a story that wants to be taken seriously. I'm not trying to say the game needs to be fully serious or fully silly, but I am saying that this complete disconnect between the game's story and the game's side quests doesn't help it. Make Testy Festy a main quest and have it piss John off. Acknowledge that the world you've crafted is inherently ridiculous and take both. You've pitched a game to me by saying it's a bunch of preppers versus a bunch of doomsday cultists, and the end of the game is a nuclear apocalypse. I would assume the story doesn't act like a super serious drama, but Far Cry 5's story does act like a super serious drama. You could tell me it's satirical, and I still wouldn't like it, because it does not entertain. It doesn't even lean into the political satire side of things. The characters like to say things like, "Look who's in charge," or point to world events, but it's just vague enough so you can't tell if it's applying to anything real. Also, the radio broadcasts that supposedly foretell the apocalypse are just like a fart in the wind. I would try to pay attention, in my 3 playthroughs of this game, I've only heard them twice. The first time, I didn't know what it was and I assumed it was common, and the second time I jumped out of an airplane mid-broadcast so I missed the whole thing. If it's important information, then let me hear it easily. I don't even want the game to be a political satire. I want it to be fun and not end with me losing to an abusive, psychopathic murderer. If anyone ever wonders what hurt me, it was Far Cry 5. When I said to myself, it could have the dumbest story, but it's still a Far Cry. And then it had a dumb story and it pissed me off. Somebody bring me Joseph! I'm sick of his stupid face and his drippy nose and his hippie little glasses. Somebody bring me his hippie ass so I can beat it. I'm so sick of you, Joseph.
All this while